The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams on Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It's picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Wood, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA. No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stuff. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler.
Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson.
After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh. Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand. Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 161. I'm here. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, joined by Alexis Kraft, and we're here to bring you a pretty awesome episode because we were able to track down and interview two fun prospects in this upcoming NFL draft. Please welcome later on the show Kansas linebacker Joe Dineen and Josh Miles, offensive lineman from Morgan State. We had a blast interviewing them, and we're really excited to share that with you.
Yeah, these guys were awesome, and I think people are really going to enjoy the interview.
Yeah, without a doubt. Before we get into that, we'll talk a little bit about, the randomness that's going on around the social media sphere. And I guess, it's the off season and, you're going to hear everything. You're going to have mock drafts that have Kyler Murray going to the Patriots. You're going to have, free agency predictions where, the Rams sign, the big boxed free agent. But, I think the really interesting thing is that a lot of people right now are talking about Von Miller to the Rams and TJ Hawkinson not being a fit. And I think it's hilarious because, I think when you look at, Von Miller, obviously that'd be a great move, depending on how much you give up. And he does cost a lot of money, but he's a phenomenal talent. It's just, you can't really expect, the Broncos to just give him up. And I know there's a lot of talk out there like, oh, we could move on. This is going to be a blown up type of thing and they're going to reset. But if that's the case, Alexis, then why do they still have Case Keenum and they traded for, Joe Flacco? Like, I just wouldn't understand that at all.
Yeah, I agree. And it's certainly interesting to hear all the talk about Von Miller to the Rams because Von's a guy I actually like a lot. I mean, he's obviously an incredible player. He's done some incredible things. However, that is a lot to give up. And I don't think that the Rams take on that kind of contract or want to give up more picks or whatever it would take. I think that the only way that Von Miller ends up a Ram is if we give up a lot or a miracle happens.
I think that's exactly it. Like, I can't see that happening. I think more so, I think you would be more likely to see a Chris Harris Jr. trade. If there's anybody from the Broncos that's currently rostered, I think it would be Chris Harris Jr. that you could possibly see as a Ram. As far as free agency, I think the Broncos, just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think the Broncos have a lot of talent that's kind of out in this free agency pool. And I think the one that really sticks out to me the most is Shaquille Barrett. I mean, this is somebody that, I think is absolutely a starter. I think he could be a starter on the Rams, and I was kind of banging the table for him last year, and I'll continue to do so. I mean, I think he would make a lot of sense. I think he'd be a cheaper option. I'm not talking really cheap, but if you're not looking to pay a guy for $15 million per year, somebody that didn't really get a huge opportunity to start might make a lot of sense. I know a lot of people would gravitate towards Shane Ray, but I hear the Rams are kind of lukewarm on him. So I would really be interested in Shaquille Barrett. And of course, Brandon Marshall is also out there. But, those injuries, and ever since Wade left, he hasn't been the same. Now, I get, obviously the Rams have Wade Phillips, but I don't know. Brandon Marshall doesn't intrigue me as much as, say, Shaquille Barrett.
Yeah, I like both those guys. I think if I'm looking at guys from the Broncos, I want who free agency wise is probably Matt Paradis, the center.
Oh, we literally just had an exercise, and I literally had the Rams signing him. Well, that was stupid. I mean, I totally agree with you. Perfect point there.
Yeah, but we'll see. It's people love to speculate, and people love to throw out wild scenarios because there's a chance that it could happen. But I think in regards to all this talk and free agency, it's just the truth is nobody really knows. Nobody's going to know until it happens. You just got to look at realism and look at probably what's most likely going to happen. And what most likely is going to happen is Von Miller is going to stay with the Broncos. I mean, I think that's probably not a crazy assumption to make.
Yeah. I mean, you get somebody like Bradley Chubb. I mean, Bradley Chubb is supposed to be kind of adding on to Von Miller. I mean, when you lose, a DeMarcus Ware type of player, you kind of have to replace him. And while I believe they absolutely could have replaced him with Shaquille Barrett, I just don't feel like they valued him enough. And this is why I feel like he, great fit there. Paradis, I also see a great fit, replacing Sullivan. So, obviously those two guys. And, I would probably, make the argument that they could explore potentially signing somebody like Bradley Roby, who I felt like had kind of a bad year in his contract season, might be an interesting option there. I mean, there's just really options all across the board, but I think, the Broncos kind of have this myriad of, free agents, so, and trade targets for that matter. So it is a really interesting thing. But, moving on to TJ Hawkinson, this is somebody, again, I made this argument before. This is the best player available at 31 if he's there. So, this whole idea where it's like he has to replace Gerald Everett. The Rams have to trade Gerald Everett if they end up going with Hawkinson. I just disagree with it wholeheartedly. I feel like you could have all three of those guys, him, Higbee, and Everett. But, furthermore, I think, really, Hawkinson is only going to help Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett's only going to help Hawkinson. I think they're kind of, this combination. I mean, could be like Gronkowski and Hernandez, or, obviously not the greatest, person in the world. But, I mean, for a while, that was a nice duo of tight ends. And, I just think, somebody like, Delaney Walker, with Vernon Davis back in, San Francisco. So I really like the move if that's where they go. The question is, are the Rams going to stay at 31? And to me, if Hawkinson's there, I mean, that pick becomes really valuable. And I feel like, in this type of, tight end class, which is really big, if you're able to get the best tight end at 31, I think you have to, to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if he's there, that's certainly an option. I don't think he's going to be there at 31, and I don't think that the Rams, if they trade up, are going to be trading up for him. But say that somehow Hawkinson does end up on the Rams, I think if you get rid of anybody, you get rid of Higbee. I certainly would rather have Everett and Hawkinson on there than I would Hawkinson and Higbee. But I mean, like you said, you also it's not crazy to assume that the Rams could keep all three. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean that's really the way it goes. But those are the two that are being talked about. Obviously, I've seen some LaMarcus Joyner. Do you bring him back? I mean, I think we've covered that. And do you cut Barron, when he started to play well towards the end of the year, and do you cut Mike Brockers? I mean, there are a lot of tough decisions ahead. Quite simply, my biggest thing is if you're looking at, say, free safety, and you feel as though, having LaMarcus Joyner keeps you at a 13-3 team, but you take him away and you're an 11-5 team. I think that's an argument to pay LaMarcus Joyner. But if you look at, say you take LaMarcus Joyner away and you put Blake Countess there, or Stephen Parker, or a Marquis Christian, or, somebody else, and you still win 13 games. I mean, how valuable was LaMarcus Joyner? At the end of the day, wins are, the ultimate goal. So, I look at something like that, like how many wins are you taking away by, losing a player? And I mean, I'd argue Sue, you'd probably maybe one game. Joyner, I would say 0. You might win a game that you wouldn't have with Joyner, because Joyner was that close to costing the Rams the NFC title game. So, I would say that, and then Mark Barron, I think you're kind of on the teeter-totter of, -1 wins with him, or, 0 wins. That's kind of where I feel, because with Dante Fowler, you could make the argument that he helped win the Saints game, and he helped win the Cowboys game. So, I think his pressure off the edge is something to be seen. Now, the Rams did have pressure, back when they had Chris Long and Robert Quinn. Chris Long eventually leaves, is cut, and then, Robert Quinn is traded away. And then you have, your Connor Barwin of the world, where it's like you can grab a cheap option, but, I mean, you can see exactly what's going to happen when you go with the cheap option. And Barwin really, Barwin wasn't really that great, didn't set the edge very well. He is at the end of his career. So, the Rams, they really need more out of Samson Ebukam, just somebody that I feel is underachieving. And, he's still young, don't get me wrong, but, I think the edge, if we're talking about anybody coming back, I think your argument could be made to, pay Dante Fowler. There's people against, tagging him. I would not tag him for the simple reason why, I don't know why people haven't said this, but, it seems like the Rams have a tag curse, where if, they tag Trumaine Johnson back-to-back seasons, and he doesn't play all that well, and he gets hurt. And they tag Marcus Joyner this year, and he goes from a top 5 safety in the NFL to, wow, I don't even want this guy back. So, it's kind of crazy, but it seems as though it's like a curse.
Yeah, it is. And, I think it's interesting because something that you and I have talked about on the show a lot is we're really wanting Dante Fowler back. And if we don't get Dante Fowler back, it's either that or we draft like an edge guy at 31 or trade up for an edge guy. But, there really is so many options, and, it isn't like, I think there's a way that multiple options can make sense. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's something that the Rams are going to have to feel out. And I'm sure that the Rams have been thinking of and looking at a lot of things that we aren't looking at right now, including a lot of free agents that maybe we probably want to be fans of, but who knows, maybe there's guys that the Rams like. So it's just interesting to think about, honestly. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's really going to be interesting. We keep talking about this off season, but there's a bunch of things that could happen. I remember where I was when the Rams ended up trading for Marcus Peters. I was training at my brand new job, and like I just I got that notice on my phone. I was like, what? Like I couldn't believe it. It just seemed like something the Rams wouldn't have done a few years back, and now here they are. They're kind of, I hate saying it, Alexis, but they were kind of all in. And so I'd hate to, it almost seems as though you lose a Super Bowl, and it seems as though you're that close and you missed. So you seem that much further away because you now have to wait another year and earn your way to get your second, shot at that. So, I feel like you're more prone to make a big splash and a big move because you're not, no matter what record you finish with, you didn't get the ultimate goal done. And like, to me, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a giant move. Now, I'm not saying Odell Beckham Jr. to the Rams, although I'll monitor that because I do think it's kind of interesting. I don't see it happening, but stranger things have happened, and they did have connection, and they did want him at one point. So I'm not saying OBJ, I'm not saying Antonio Brown. I don't think they'd have any interest in whatsoever. It wouldn't make any sense. Obviously PR nightmare, and then you talk about somebody that's already in his 30s. And that money, so that wouldn't make any sense. So, I could see them going out and trading for Chris Harris Jr., or maybe even, somebody like Jadeveon Clowney, who's probably going to get tagged by the Houston Texans. I wouldn't be surprised. The Rams tried to trade for Khalil Mack last year on top of Aaron Donald, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade for Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, I think if you're really trying to move the needle, you really outdid yourself with Ndamukong Suh, because I thought, Suh was a move that they would not have made in previous years. They would have made a move to get somebody like Fairley, and then they would have marketed him like an Ndamukong Suh when he wasn't. But I feel like now, they've gotten Suh, they've done stuff like that. I feel like because they lost the Super Bowl, they're less likely to feel comfortable. I don't think that they're going to shell out an extension for any of these players. I don't think Goff's going to get an extension this offseason. I don't think any of that. I do think, somebody like Corey Littleton will get brought back for a decent amount. And then I think in free agency or via the trade, I think they'll make a move. It's almost as if it's really like their way of, doing things. You trade your first round pick away, for as part of the Jared Goff trade. So that's the first draft Sean McVay was in. He didn't have a first round pick, and then the next pick the next year they trade away their first round pick for Brandon Cooks. And so, it's like, I guess he's just getting used to not picking the first round. You miss out on that 5th year option, but if you play it right, you can actually kind of extend your allotted cap, because when you trade away your first round pick, that allotted cap now goes down. It doesn't go up. You just trade away your first round pick. You're going to have to pay this guy, X amount of dollars. So now that goes down. Your value goes down. Your allotted cap goes down. So, there's always, we talked about it, during our, little free agency game. When you actually make picks in the draft, that goes towards your cap. So, a lot of people forget that, but the Rams actually saved a lot of money by trading away their first-round pick. And, you saw how much they were above the cap, if hardly any. So, I would make the argument that was kind of big in, allowing somebody like Ndamukong Suh to come in. I mean, they barely fit everyone, above that cap number. So, I think it would definitely be interesting. I think if, again, trades, I think Clowney would be an option. I would think maybe depending on where they think Joe Noteboom is, I mean, they could go out and they could trade for somebody if they're worried about, Whitworth retiring. That's just kind of how I see it. I think really it's fair game. They could trade for another cornerback if they don't, believe in Marcus Peters. I don't see them trading for a safety. And maybe another linebacker, if they want to go out and do that. Maybe Hassan Reddick, who was reportedly on the trade block at the trade deadline. So, those are some options out there. I personally wouldn't mind Hassan Reddick. I think, this guy's going to be really good, and he's far from reaching his full potential.
Yeah, there certainly are guys out there, and there certainly is a very real possibility that McVay trades out of the first round again. I mean, we're at 31. I keep saying that I would like the Rams to trade out of round 1 if we can get a 2nd and a 4th, maybe a 2nd and a 5th. But we'll see. I mean, there certainly are a lot of options, and it's fun to speculate, and I can't wait to see what people think is going to happen next.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. But I think that's going to wrap up this part of the show. So now we'll hand it on over. We're going to start with Kansas linebacker Joe Dineen. We had a blast interviewing him, talking about, why he chose Kansas, how he went from, being a safety and a quarterback and playing multiple positions, even running back, and becoming one of the better linebackers in all of college football, among other things. And then we're going to talk with Josh Miles and how he picked Morgan State, and what it was like to play for Morgan State. And both of them, they're going to talk about their time at the East-West Shrine Game. So a lot of fun awaits. Hope you guys enjoyed. And once again, we'll start with Dineen, and here is Joe Dineen. All right, guys, joining us on the show, Kansas linebacker Joe Dineen. How's it going, man? Thanks for joining the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. It's going really good. Training's kind of coming to a close down here for some of the combine guys, but it's going good. So just down here in Fort Lauderdale, just hanging out.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And again, thanks again for coming on the show. And I guess just to start this whole thing off, I just want to ask, what was your experience like at the East-West Shrine Game? Because that's a really big deal to play in and to be at. And it seems like a really cool experience for all the guys who were playing in it.
It really is. So, like, I'm sure you guys know, the first day we get there, we go to the Shriners Hospital, and we actually get to interact with the kids that are staying there. And, they have a bunch of games set up. We played football, basketball, you can paint faces, dance, stuff like that. It's a really cool experience. And, that's something I'll never forget. And that's kind of what it was all about. But then after that, we got down to the football, and that was also a great experience to get some NFL coaching and, just play against some of the better competition in college football this year. It was a really cool deal. And I'm glad I got that invite.
Yeah, it was just awesome to see you out there, you, Daniel, and obviously, Steven, and it's hard to see you guys go because I've watched this Kansas team for a while, and it may not have been the best team in the world, but I still loved you guys, watching you guys play football for that team. And I mean, you led the country in tackles, so that was obviously. I'm one of those people, I don't think you get enough credit, so you will be getting praised on the show.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
So I have to ask you, what made you want to play the game of football?
It's so back when I was in third grade, I started off playing soccer. Soccer was during football season, and then in third grade, my best friend's dad just came up to me after a soccer game one day and was like, "Hey, do you want to play football next year?" And I wasn't great at soccer, so I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a try." And then I ended up playing quarterback and safety, and I played that all the way up into college, or all the way up through high school. And I just fell in love with it at a young age and played it all the way since. Then it's been really good to me.
Yeah, and it seems like you've been good to it. I mean, in 2013, you were in high school. You were named the Kansas Player of the Year, and as a two-way player that played quarterback and safety, how did you play multiple positions your freshman year at KU? How did you end up eventually becoming a linebacker?
Yeah, so the story is interesting. I got recruited to KU as a safety. And then what happened is in fall camp of, I think it was 2014, we had a bunch of our running backs get hurt. And our coach at the time knew that in high school I ran the ball quite a bit. So they actually moved me to running back. And for the first 8 games of the season, my freshman year, I played running back. I didn't play a ton. I was kind of a mop-up duty guy, but I did get a few touches here and there. And so then after that, after like week 8 or so, I wasn't getting much playing time. They decided to move me to linebacker, and it worked out pretty well there. So I'm glad they made that switch.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest stories I think anyone will hear on this podcast. I mean, obviously just looking at what you've been able to do, it's really impressive. But it's all got to start somewhere. And you told us about the origin of football, but I mean, was there a favorite NFL player you had growing up?
Oh, always. Peyton Manning. for some reason. I don't know why, but Peyton Manning was always my favorite player. I honestly have no idea why. But when he was on the Colts, I don't know, at a young age, I just watched him, and obviously I was playing quarterback at the time, and I really liked how he played. He obviously was good, so I think I just started liking him, and I was a big Peyton fan. I had jersey cards, autographs, all that stuff.
Yeah, Peyton was a guy that I think people, you can't help but love, and was just such a great person as well as a player. So, and he was a guy who I really liked growing up as well. And if you had to pitch KU to a young recruit, maybe that's on the fence of committing to one place or the other, what would be your pitch to that person to come to KU?
Well, when I was there, now they have a new coaching staff there, excuse me, now, but, when I was there, I really felt like it was a family atmosphere, and it was, a lot of places say that, but I went there and really found a lot of my best friends, and the coaches really do care for you. They help you as a man, not just as a football player. They care what you do outside of football, not just what you can do for them on the field, which I think is important. I think that's lost in some programs. It's kind of, the coaches are, what can you do for me? How can you help me get victories? But our coaching staff was really invested in us as men and trying to, teach us to be, good fathers and good husbands. And they instilled a lot of good traits in my class, at least. I can't speak for the coaches that are there now. I'm sure they're doing the exact same thing. But in my experience there, it was really a kind of a full circle deal. You're there to play football, but they're also there to, help you grow up a little bit as men.
So I have to ask you, what led you, to playing your college football at KU? I know you have some bloodlines there.
Yeah.
I actually have a lot of family connections there. My uncle's actually the fire marshal right now.
Okay.
He's at every single game at Allen Fieldhouse. So, what was it like? Obviously, I know the connections, but I want you to elaborate a little bit about that.
I didn't, out of high school, I didn't have a bunch of scholarship offers. I had KU and Rice, but it came down to just me wanting to stay home, and I have 3 younger brothers. I wanted to watch them grow up. I just felt like the Lawrence community was something I wasn't ready to give up yet. It was pretty cool because a lot of like the same journalists and stuff that covered me in high school I got to speak with when I was in college. So it was kind of, they knew me in high school, and then they kind of followed me up through my career at KU. I can't pinpoint one thing that made me really want to go there, but it was really the town and the community. And then obviously Coach Bowen did a really good job recruiting, and then along with the bloodline, like you mentioned.
Yeah, what is it like having all those family ties with KU? Going back to legendary Phil Gallen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not a lot of people know that, but I think it's a pretty rare deal. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that can say they can take their athletic, family or whatever back that many generations to one school. Now, I do have one of my younger brothers that just signed his letter of intent to go play at Kansas State, which is interesting. But we're supporting him. But no, it's a pretty cool deal to have a bunch of Jayhawks in the family. It makes for a fun Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, it's really funny that you went right to Jax, because that was going to be part of my next question for you. But your brother Jay, right. He's with Kansas right now. What was it like to play on the same team as your brother? And then I was going to ask you, what was it like to watch your other brother Jax commit to your in-state rival?
Right. No. Okay. So, well, with Jay, it was really cool. I got to play with him for 2 years, and just to see him come in and how he grew as a player, he changed his body like crazy. I think he's going to see some good minutes this year. He's always been a really physical, crazy kid, which you need to be to play linebacker. And I think this year he'll really show what he can do, and I'm excited for him. It was always really fun to watch him from obviously an older brother standpoint, but also like one of the captains of the team, and watching him as a younger guy work and compete and stuff like that. I think it was really cool. It was a cool experience for both of us. And then on to Jax. Yeah, man, it was a tough deal. I'm really excited for him. I'm happy for him, and I think he's really he made a good connection with that coach over there. And he's really excited to get there and get going. It was kind of a weird deal here at KU with scholarship numbers, and then I think he just felt just a little bit more welcomed at K-State. Not that KU did anything wrong there necessarily, but I think he just wanted to go where he really felt wanted, and I think he really felt wanted at K-State. So I can't blame him for that. I'm gonna have a really hard time wearing purple, but I might wear it every other day except for when they play KU.
Right, and that certainly makes sense. But kind of going back to your time playing for Kansas, who would you say is the toughest player that you faced while playing at Kansas?
That's a really good question, and I think even going back the 3 years, I think the best player all those 3 years ended up being on Oklahoma. And, they had those running backs, Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine, and then Baker and now Kyler. And, they offensively, they're just loaded year in and year out. So probably those guys, Baker and Kyler were pretty tough to play against.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy the type of talent that just comes from the Big 12. I mean, Dalton Reisner, is somebody that we're actually gonna have on the show, and I mean, you've definitely gone up against him before, and there we go talking about Kansas State. So, but
no, he's a stud though. He's a great dude, but he's mean on the field, and that's kind of what you want out of your O-lineman. He makes his presence felt for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. But what was it like playing on the same defense as your fellow draft prospect Daniel Wise, and I'd even say Dorrance Armstrong, who's in the NFL right now?
It's Daniel made my job a lot easier. He always demanded a double team, or he was going to make a tackle on the backfield. So teams finally, after his sophomore year, realized that he needed to be double teamed because one-on-one he was pretty much unstoppable. He's off the field. He's what you want on your team too. He's a great leader. He's one of the hardest working guys I've ever seen. I played with him for 5 years, so it's been really cool to see him, grow into the player that he is, and he really did make my job a lot easier. And then obviously Dorrance, when he came in as a freshman, we all knew he was something special. He's kind of a freak athlete, and then he put some weight on, which he was a scary football player, and he's doing well with the Cowboys, and it's just cool to see guys like Daniel and Dorrance getting the publicity and the respect that they deserve.
I definitely agree with you there. And just doubling back off that question, I mean, what are your thoughts on KU's defense moving forward? Under the new coaching staff. I mean, I think they have a lot of talent. Obviously, I was looking at the defense, with you this year, and you look at Mike Lee, and I think he's going to be right up there in the draft in a couple of years. And I really like Ko Harris, and there's a bunch of guys. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, in some spots we're going to be a little bit young. Linebacker is going to be a little young, which is fine. And then D-line is going to be a little bit young, which is also fine. I mean, it's not like they're bad players. It's just not the experience isn't there as much. But where they have the experience, and I think this is one of the more important things in the conference that we play in, is their secondary is really experienced. And, like the Big 12 likes to throw it all over the place. And when you have a bunch of new guys running around out there, it's kind of scary for them when they first see it. But once they get used to it and get used to the speed of the Big 12, they can do some damage. And they have a lot of returning guys, and I think the secondary is really going to lead that defense this year.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. And so kind of going into that a little bit is, what is it like to constantly be one of the most productive players in college football and not really getting the recognition you ultimately deserve? Because you're a guy who contributes, you play hard every single snap. And do you think maybe it's because Kansas somewhat gets overlooked sometimes as an organization, or do you think that people sometimes take hard workers a little bit for granted sometimes in college football and that type of thing?
That's a good question. I think, the bottom line is that when I was there, we didn't win enough games. And no matter what my production was, I mean, it is what it is. But the most important thing is that we didn't win the games. And I think if we would have won the games, then it could have been a little bit different. But, I mean, the stats and stuff are all great, but the bottom line is that we didn't win enough games. And I would have traded all my stats and accolades and stuff like that to go to a bowl game. But, it just didn't work out like that. So, to be overlooked, I mean, that's nothing really new to me. I wasn't, I've been kind of overlooked a little bit my whole life. So that's nothing new, but I'm not, we didn't win enough games, and I'm not going to sit here and say that, my stats were what they were, but we just didn't win enough games. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, it's certainly tough, obviously. I mean, you're going out getting 14 tackles a game, and, you're just contributing everywhere all over the field. But, I hear you, man. I mean, I stuck through it, just like you were on the field. I was at home. I mean, it's kind of crazy because I live in upstate New York, but you guys were actually on TV quite a bit. I mean, I know, you'd play like Texas, and everyone is obsessed with Texas for some reason, but but it'd still be cool, seeing you on TV, and I totally agree. I mean, you were constantly productive, but again, the wins, I totally understand that. What would you say is your biggest strength? Because obviously, tackling would be up there, but what would you say is your biggest strength as a player?
Oh man. I feel like I'm really instinctual. I feel like I don't know. I make a lot of plays at and behind the line of scrimmage. And I think that has something to do with me just kind of being able to read quick and then obviously make a play. And I would say if I had to put my finger on it, it'd be instincts. I kind of have a knack for the football, and I pride myself on always trying to get, in the frame of the film, chasing the ball, and just, I don't know. I think football is supposed to be played a certain way, and I try to play that every snap.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I kind of always like to ask is, what's kind of something that you think, I don't want to say biggest weakness, but something that you're trying to work on most heading into the draft?
I think for me, the big thing that I got feedback on at the East-West Shrine game is I need to get better depth in my drops and zone coverages, and then just improve on my man skills. I wasn't necessarily in the position at KU to cover like tight ends necessarily man to man, which I know I can do. And I thought I showed at the Shrine game that I can do that. I covered the tight ends pretty well there. But that's just kind of the feedback that I've been getting. And then, like I said, getting depth in my zone drops. Every once in a while I find myself in, that 5 to 7 yard range, which is called the no cover zone. And I got to get back out into, 10 to 12 depth range.
Yeah, I like it. I think it's valid. Obviously any draft prospect in the draft can improve on something. And, I
Right.
think really the biggest knock on you that I keep seeing is that you're not like a new age linebacker, which to me I kind of laugh at. Because I'm like, it's like everyone was obsessed with the kid Chris Borland when he came into the league, and everyone's saying, well, he's not the new age linebacker. And then when he retired, everyone's like, why did he retire? Like he was great. And I just, I feel like, really the linebacker position is like, honestly, I think they're the most under fire of anybody, because it's no matter what happens. I mean, we, the viewer at home, don't know what the coverage was. So, it's just, we don't know what the play was. So I think you're always under a lot of heat, and, I think you do a great job. I'm really excited to watch you get drafted on draft night, and, hopefully
I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a lot of fun watching you at KU, and hopefully I get to see you in horns. With that being said,
no doubt.
Because I have to ask you, have you met with the Los Angeles Rams yet?
Yeah, I talked to him at East-West Shrine game. Yep. I talked to one of their scouts. It was a good conversation for sure.
I love it. I mean, obviously those Kansas Jayhawks, obviously, Leroy Irvin was there, and Aqib Talib's there right now, so it'd be awesome to see another Ram Jayhawk again.
No doubt. I'd love to go play for Coach McVay.
Yeah, certainly. He certainly is kind of making a name for himself, and seems like a guy that a lot of people want to play for. And
and other programs want to copy.
Right, exactly. But I guess just kind of to wrap it up, just, for our listeners, who would you say is Joe Dineen the player, and who is Joe Dineen the person?
Man, so it's interesting. To play linebacker, you kind of have to be able to flip a switch that makes you not the nicest person when you step in between the white lines. So, on the field, I'm probably not the most friendly. I'm not the nicest guy when I step on the field. I'm a competitive guy, and I like this game, and I think it shows in my play. But off the field, I know how to flip that switch off, and I'm a pretty caring dude. I actually, the awards that I did get, a lot of them were for, community impact and, just having a positive influence in the community and stuff like that, which those are the ones I'm really proud of. And so I pride myself on, making the area around me better than it is currently. So, on the field, it is what it is, but off the field, I feel like I'm a pretty sympathetic and caring guy.
I love it, man. I'm really excited. I mean, I can't stress it enough. I love anytime any Jayhawk goes in the NFL. I mean, I think they kind of were starting to carve out a little DBU with Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr.
A little bit,
No one talks about Darnell Stuckey getting a Pro Bowl bid. So,
I know.
So we'll
no,
see.
They've had a few come through here, no doubt.
So I'm looking forward to it. But hey, it's been a lot of fun. We really appreciate you coming on. It just it means the world, and we'll be rooting for you, and let's stay in touch.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Joe. It means a lot.
Thanks. See you.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that. That was Kansas linebacker Joe Dineen. Huge fan of his, obviously. You guys know I'm a huge Kansas fan, so really fun having him on. I tried to get Dorrance on last year, Dorrance Armstrong. Didn't work out, so glad to get a KU Jayhawk back on the pod. Last time I had a KU Jayhawk on the pod, besides Leroy Irvin, was Fish Smithson 2 years ago. So Really appreciate Dineen coming on. It was a lot of fun doing that. And we're going to dive right into Josh Miles' interview. So here is Josh Miles. All right, guys. Joining us on the podcast, Morgan State offensive lineman Josh Miles. How's it going, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Awesome, man. Super blessed. How you guys doing?
We're good, and we're really excited to have you on.
Excited to be here, man. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I guess just to dive right in, I guess just tell us a little bit about your story in playing football. You know, what age did you start playing football, or how did you get into it? Did you have a favorite player that you watched growing up who you idolized and wanted to style your game after?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been kind of a lifelong thing with me in football. Originally, my mom got me into it when I was 7 years old. I was a superstar member of the Randallstown Panthers, back in the day. So I've been playing since youth. I always loved the game. Grew up watching Ray Lewis. It was probably my favorite player back in the day. I mean, I tried to model my approach to the game after him for sure. But, I grew up a Ravens fan. So, I grew up admiring some of the greats like Jonathan Ogden, Jamal Lewis, guys like that.
That's pretty awesome. We get that a lot with Ray Lewis. It's Ray Lewis, Michael Vick, those really polarizing players are a lot of people's favorites. But I want to know, how did you end up choosing Morgan State as the college you wanted to go to and ultimately play football at?
Yeah, it just felt like a brotherhood, honestly, when the first time I stepped on campus. I fell in love with the place at my first recruiting visit. And then, of course, I've been to a bunch of the Morgan State homecomings, growing up. Actually, I lived right next door to a kid whose grandfather who coached for the team, his whole life also. So, I grew up going to their homecomings, and just seeing that tradition when I was younger really made me want to be a Bear.
Yeah, I'm sure that was probably something that you always dreamed of, being around that university so much. And, I'm sure it was awesome to finally get to be a Morgan State Bear. And I guess, what's your favorite memory from playing college football, if you can pick one?
Honestly, I have so many. I mean, well, first off, just getting to know so many different guys, getting to understand so many different stories. I really, love the brothers and value the relationships that I've made at my time at Morgan. But also, I got to say, if I got to pick one specific moment, I'll say beating number 4 ranked A&T on their home turf this year. That was a lot of fun, snapping their 39-game home win streak. And, they hadn't been beaten in 2 years, back-to-back, Black College football champions. And we went out there and beat them. We were completely unranked and, definitely underappreciated in our league. So it felt good to make some waves.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Now, playing at Morgan State, I have to ask you, who's the toughest player you went up against in college?
I played against a lot of really good players. I forget the guy's name, but number 9 from Akron, he's another highly touted guy. He'll be at the combine. Daryl Johnson from A&T, he's a really good player himself. Played defensive end, a quick guy off the edge. He'll also be at the draft. My first ever college football start was kind of a baptism by fire, if you know what I mean. We went out and played Air Force in Colorado, and played against the fifth-year senior, 4-time All-American Alex Hansen. And I'm not sure what he's doing now, but he was a great matchup for me, coming right off the bus.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And I guess who are you most excited to stonewall in the NFL? Is there a guy in your mind that you just can't wait to go up against, and a guy who I'm sure you admire but would still just love to hold up and go against?
Shoot, I'm a pretty competitive guy, so I'm excited for all the competition in the league. I mean, I was watching all those E60 features and short reports on Aaron Donald. Just watching his work ethic and the way he moves on the field is absolutely amazing. So, going against a guy like him is going to be fun. If I go to the Rams, then, going against him in practice every day is definitely going to, sharpen my skills. J.J. Watt, he's another monster freak athlete, just watching him come off the edge all these years has been, awesome to see a super athlete like that, just how big he is and how well he can move and use his strength. There's a lot of great defensive linemen and linebackers. I can't wait to see how I measure up against. I know I'm going to come out on top, though.
Oh yeah, and watching you play, I mean, you're very violent, and I mean that's a good thing, on the football field.
Definitely.
What do you do to prepare yourself for these games? I mean, like, do you bash your head up against a brick wall? Like, how does this go?
I don't have too much Brian Cushing in me, but I do a lot of stuff. I mean, I pray. I read the Bible before every game. I really enjoyed the chapel services and stuff on Saturdays before the games. But also it's just locking in and focusing on the game plan. I make sure I know all the opening plays. I really understand like which players are gonna, like what moves players are gonna make and what their tendencies are. So I mean, going over game film is really helpful for me. Just seeing stuff like that on film and then walking through it in practice and being able to get the right looks on scout team is really helpful. But game day, I'm all about focus. I got my headphones on. Listen to a little Travis Scott, get some Kanye in there to get my attitude going, pump up the ego, and just get in my zone.
Hey, I mean, I'm the world's biggest Travis Scott fan, so I love to hear that. He actually was here in St. Louis last night, and I could not manage to find a ticket. And I was devastated. So I had to live through it on Snapchat. I just pretended by seeing everyone's stories that I was there and got to experience it. But
I too missed out on the ticket to the Astroworld tour. I regret it every day.
Yeah, it's gonna haunt me for a long time, that's for sure. But as Jake mentioned, you're a very violent tackle who's a hard hitter and. Would you consider that to be your biggest strength, or what would you consider to be your biggest strength from a gameplay standpoint?
I mean, I'd say, a lot of people would say it's my athleticism. I move my feet really well, and I feel like I'm a pretty cerebral player. But playing off of that, I'm very focused. Like I said, I prepare very well for games, and just that preparedness kind of gives me like a confidence to play fast. So just knowing the playbook, and knowing my competition is always great. But I mean, I'm a student of the game, so I pride myself on being coachable and being able to learn fast. So just picking up on any little bits that the coaches can give me to get an edge is always something that I'm looking to do. I'm asking my coaches a million questions, asking my teammates a million questions.
Yeah, and I mean, what have you been doing to prepare for this pre-draft process? Because I'm sure everyone does their own little thing, and I think that's what makes really this whole off season feel kind of fun. How some people are at Exos and some people are at just gone back home to like North Dakota, and people are like, why are they in North Dakota? Like it's kind of like your opportunity to go where you feel most comfortable to prepare for your biggest night of your life. So how are you doing that?
Yeah, I'm down right now. I'm down here in Indiana. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm training at Pro X with my boys at Trench Game. So that's a bunch of the ex-Indianapolis Colts have gotten together, and they started a combine training facility. And it's a brand new facility, like $6 million. They just opened it like a month ago. But I've been training for the past 2 months. I was at the Grand Park in Indianapolis training. So, a few of those ex-NFL guys, I'm down here with Daniel Muir and Dylan Gandy, Robert Mathis, some really big name, veteran, intelligent NFL guys. And, I'm just really trying to soak up the game from them because I feel like that Like, I mean, obviously I don't have vet experience yet, but if I could get, some little tips or some little tidbits to take into the locker room, my first year, I really feel like that'll give me an edge. But, we're going hard every day. It's, like 5 and 6 hour days, and, getting up early in the morning and running and lifting, and, I'm really, really locked into this whole process. And then I don't know if you guys saw that Football Life with Ray Lewis. He said that he got himself a deck of cards, and he just flip over a card, and whatever number was on the card, he crank out a couple push-ups. So I started doing that, to try to increase his bench press number. So I'm really, really locked in. I'm all the way sold out to this process.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. And, just talking to you and talking to a lot of guys, I can't imagine what that feeling must be like to work this hard, your whole life and your college career. And then to find out that, you're going to the combine. I mean, that's a big deal. Do you remember where you were or what it was like when you found out that you got the invite?
I was actually here. I was actually, training for, I had just gotten back from the Shrine game. I had just gotten back from the Shrine game about a week after I got the invite. And I was just stretching, getting ready for the run that day. And I just happened to look at my phone, and it says, you got an email from the NFL. And I'm like, all right, who's pulling my leg right now? And it says, this is Josh Miles, you got your combine invite, fill out, these forms, and we'll see you in Indy. And I'm like, whoa, I'm blown away. I called my agent, called my mom, and, all my best friends, so it was a really surreal experience, it meant so much. It was humbling, and then it just made me want to work twice as hard. I was already going hard, but now I knew I needed to ramp it up,
Yeah.
I definitely hear you there. And, you mentioned, the Shrine game. What was that whole thing like, and how'd that go?
Oh, that was absolutely amazing, man. It was, I mean, I know it sounds cliche, but it was kind of life-changing. I was down in St. Petersburg, Florida, with some of the best competition in the nation, in the world, just soaking up different cultures from, just different team cultures and different, university, what football is like at, the University of Miami or Georgia or Kentucky or Oregon, all over, guys from all over at the Shrine game. And then, of course, the hospital visit was absolutely amazing. I went down there and talked to a bunch of kids and their families. And, I really heard about, some of the kids who were a little, unfortunate to be impacted with ailments, but then the Shriners, of course, treated them completely for free. And most of the kids are making full recoveries or have made full recoveries. I talked to this one little girl, Madison, who, she actually had scoliosis, and the Shriners treated her, and she ended up, coming back and establishing a little foundation of her own and raised like $8,000 for the Shriners Hospital, so that was really surreal hearing experiences like that. And, I was just blessed to be a part of the process. I loved every second of it. I was down there, I interviewed with all 32 teams and talked to some GMs and player personnel guys. And, it was just so much fun. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, that sounds like a truly special experience and something that probably means a lot to go to that game, as a player and as an NFL draft prospect, but, as a person, and get to have that experience for yourself and to get to meet all those incredible people and all those kids. It just sounds like it truly was the best of both worlds for both your football career and your personal growth. I'm sure that was awesome. And it's really good to hear, stories like that. But I have to ask, we are a Rams podcast. Have you met with the Los Angeles Rams?
Yeah, definitely. I talked to several guys from the Rams. A few of the scouts came out and saw me at practice, before, the season ended, and, before I even got the Shrine game invite, and, just talking with those guys was cool. And then, I talked to several of the Rams representatives at the Shrine game, and, I'm sure I'll talk to more of them at the actual combine. It would be amazing to be in LA.
I feel like that's just kind of like, I mean, that continues to be the theme, like anytime we ask somebody, what would it be to play for the Rams or something, they're like, oh, well, I'd love to play in LA. And it's crazy because they've been in LA since, 2016. And you think about it and you're like, well, I mean, football wasn't in LA for a while. So it's like, all of us really, I mean, I'm 23, Alexis is 22. I mean, how old are you right now, Josh?
I'm 23, turned 23 in January.
Yeah, so see, we're all in the same age group, so like we didn't even grow up really with any team in, any football in LA. And now just think about it, Josh. When you say you end up playing in LA, you're gonna be, playing for a Los Angeles football team, and there's gonna be this whole new generation of people that grow up knowing that there was football in Los Angeles. I just think that's incredible, and it's just, you mentioned it, so I figured I'd go on that. But
yeah, that is absolutely awesome. I mean, of course, the Rams obviously had an excellent year this year, and there's so much amazing young talent in LA right now. I mean, it would be an honor to be a part of that team.
Yeah, and I think probably be a blast going up against Aaron Donald in practice, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know I would. I mean, he might beat me a couple of reps, but I know it would just sharpen my game. Iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
that's good. I like that. So Josh, I do have to ask you, because we talked about your experience at the Shrine Game. I myself was really impressed with the talent that's there, and I think I've only been able to go to the Senior Bowl. I've covered the Senior Bowl back-to-back seasons, and it would have been great, obviously, to see you there. But I feel like people are really quick to kind of write you guys off, and I look at what you guys are able to do, and there's a ton of talent there. There's obviously the call-ups. The kid from Elon, I ended up interviewing, Oli Udo. And then you talk about Daniel Wise and Daylon Mack and Joe Dineen and all those different guys. It's just who was the biggest competitor you went up against at the Shrine Game?
It was so much talent at the Shrine Game, and it was just like everybody approached it so professionally. I was really impressed with the work ethic of guys there, and just amount of professionalism. Oli Udo, he was extremely impressive there. He showed up every day and worked, crazy hard. My boy Ethan from Villanova, he was Ethan Green is from Villanova. He was, really impressive out there. I'll say the guy from OSU. I do not remember his name. But he, that's so, embarrassing to say on a podcast, but, he was impressive. He should have been the defensive MVP in my opinion. But, of course the guy from Oregon was a great competitor in his own right. But that guy showed up every day and, worked his tail off in practice. He was extremely quick. He had great moves, so with his spin and his long arm and stuff like that. So just watching, the D linemen and even the receivers and cornerbacks and skill position guys go at it was awesome. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, and I would say who at that East-West Shrine Game, what did you think of the quarterbacks there? Because there's a lot of talk that the Rams might take a guy in the 5th or 6th to get behind Goff. So what was your take on that?
They were all really great. They were really professional. The guy that stood out to me was David Blau. He was like a baby Drew Brees, smaller guy, but he was really professional. He really commanded respect and acted like a leader. At the Shrine Game, they named him the team captain, and it was for a good reason. He was a great guy to be around and a fun guy to be with in practice. But he was definitely about business. So it's good to see stuff like that from your quarterback.
Yeah, that's that's awesome. There's a lot of great talent over there. I was really keeping my eye on Brett Ripien, and his his uncle was actually a quarterback for the Rams back in 95, 96. So
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm interested in those bloodlines. But do you have any of those like bloodlines, to the NFL, or is this all you? Is it you're carrying this thing, family tree?
It's just me and God right now. I'm a purebred, and I'll be in the NFL for a long time.
I love it. Absolutely,
No doubt
love that
about
answer.
it.
Yes, sir.
So, I guess to kind of go off that, who would you say is Joshua Miles as a player, and who is Joshua Miles as a person?
As a player, I'm mean, I'm nasty, I'm extremely competitive. I'm very coachable. I'm a very fast learner. I love to pick up new techniques. I love to, learn different schemes. I'm a very tenacious blocker. I'm very aggressive in the run game, and very aggressive in the pass game also. We always say pass protection, but not passive aggressive. So I'm very mean, very nasty in between the whistles. I'm gonna give you all I got every play. Josh Miles is a person. He's a very curious mind. I do a lot of reading, mostly, especially the Bible. I'm a God-fearing man. I have 4 uncles who are pastors. So I'm really trying to cultivate an adult relationship with God. Like I said, I'm a curious mind. I love documentaries and those weird how-to videos on YouTube and trying to learn as much as I can. I love science also. I went to a magnet high school and middle school, so that kind of cultivated a love of science and curiosity and questioning everything. I'm not a cynical guy, but I'm very curious. I'm willing to question everything.
Yeah. I can't blame you there. I think it's really cool, and you bring up those how-to videos. I mean, Joel Embiid in the NBA learned how to play basketball watching Hakeem Olajuwon, and Luis Perez, who's killing it in the AAF, who was a former Ram. He learned to play quarterback. He was a bowler, and he learned to play quarterback just off YouTube videos. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty cool. That you said that, and best of luck, man. Let's stay in touch. Let's all stay in touch, and we'll be rooting for you. Hopefully, you'll end up in Horns.
Definitely, man. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, totally. I agree with everything that Jake just said, and just thanks for coming on. I really was blown away, and I'm really excited to see where you go. And I really hope you end up a Ram. But wherever you go, I'm a fan.
Awesome, man. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Absolutely. Go kill it in Indy.
I will. Believe me, I will. All right, guys.
All right.
Have a good one, Josh.
Take it easy, Josh.
You too.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that as well. It's been a lot of fun. I think this podcast has been really cool. Double dipping on the interviews. Josh Miles was just awesome. Joe Dineen was awesome, and both of them talked with the Rams. So I thought, we did some journalism work, Alexis.
Yeah.
We got the the deets out there for the listeners. And, at the end of the day, we just found out that these two guys are just unbelievable human beings, and we're really excited to, watch them wherever they go in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely fans for life of both those guys, both Joe and Josh. And it's been a lot of fun, having people on and interviewing them, and all these prospects are just great guys. And it's been so fun to talk to them. And we've got a lot of cool guys lined up to come on as well.
Oh, yeah. The grind doesn't stop. You guys want your interviews, you're going to get them. So, again, it's draft season, and we're here to basically serve you guys, this whole draft season. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and, we're just getting started. But for Jake Ellenbogen, she's Alexis Kraft, and this has been the Downtown Rams podcast, episode 161. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in tomorrow night as we do our, I hate to admit it, Alexis, but we're going to be doing our bad takes, and I got some pretty bad takes. I don't know if I'm ready to.
I deserve this. I tweeted some things that were bold and they backfired. And, I take full accountability for all my bad takes. I stand by them. I don't regret anything, Jake. I have no regrets.
No regrets.
Exactly. And I'm excited to just embarrass myself publicly and admit that, I do make bad takes. So
yeah,
not often though, right? I mean, not often am I wrong.
I mean, no, I kid. No, I'm looking forward to it as well. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and unfortunately, a lot of this is going to be a Tavon Austin highlight reel of bad takes. So, I love you, Tavon. If you're listening, probably not, but yeah, it's going to be brutal.
I mean, all we need to know is every single year from 2011 until like 2016, it was this year's the Rams year. That's my big one. It's our year this year. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So once again, this has been the podcast, and again, tune in tomorrow, tune in the next day, and just if you didn't hear our podcast, because we kind of came rapid fire, they're all on our website. You can find them at downtownrams.com/podcast. You can also find any live podcast going on at downtownrams.com/podcast.
And let's not forget iTunes. That's a big one. They're all on iTunes.
They're on iTunes. They're on Google Play. They're on Spotify. They're on Spreaker. They're on iHeartRadio. There's Stitcher. There's Podbean. I think that we're on every.
We probably should have mentioned this earlier though. Any bad takes that you guys have, please tweet them to us, so we're not alone in this.
Using hashtag DTR bad takes. Boom.
Yeah, hashtag DTR bad takes. Tweet them to us. Make me feel better, like I'm not the only one who's made some bad takes before. We will share them, so be prepared. Don't tweet us anything you don't want us to share, because we will happily share it with the world. So be warned. And just tweet us in general too. Just tweet us in general. I can't wait to get feedback from our bad takes.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Well, the outro was supposed to happen like 10 minutes ago, but no, I kid. I mean, it's been a lot of fun doing this. I hope you guys, seriously, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I say that a lot. It's one of the Jake-isms. Oh, also, we're doing bad takes, right? I invite anybody that listens to the podcast to make Jake-ism a thing. So anytime I do something that I do constantly, and you're listening, and you're like, yo, he literally said that same thing 5 times over the last 5 minutes. Make it a Jake-ism. Hashtag Jake-ism. And tag us in the, your tweet. Because I want to see how many I have. Again, constructive criticism, but I also find it hilarious because, Trailer Park Boys, like that whole thing. So, Jake-ism. Remember that.
Well, just humiliate us on social media. I mean, we love it.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're just going to take a total drubbing.
I know. So I'm going to speed things up. His Twitter is JK Bogan, BOGEN DTR. Mine is the Alexis Craft. That's Alexis Craft with a K. And I look forward to hearing from people and just getting into it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, we're ending this podcast now. I promise you, we're done. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, listeners. Do you have a local business in or near Los Angeles? Are you trying to promote that said local business? Well, the Downtown Rams podcast is open to any and all business sponsorships. For details and any inquiries, please contact us at downtownrams@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on any social media platform that we currently use. Horns up.